What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP. It is January 16th, and I'm going to be giving an update about the state of the New York Mets as of January 16th. Had a couple of slow days in terms of free agency surrounding the New York Mets, but we do have some updates within the Mets organization surrounding the international free agent market of 2024 and the signings that the Mets made yesterday on January 15th in that IFA class, as well as an update on baseball prospectuses, MLB top 101 prospects, with 5 New York Mets prospects appearing in that list. We'll get into that. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, supporting the podcast, supporting the videos. It helps the channel grow. Comment your thoughts and opinions, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. The channel is almost at 500 subscribers. I appreciate the support, trying to get there before April of this year, which will be the 1-year anniversary of me making this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for the support and the continued support. And follow me for more Mets talk and more Mets podcast updates at CPNYSPORTS on both X and Instagram. You know where to find me. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. All right, so let's get into it. It's going to be a short video today. Like I said, free agency has been slow for the New York Mets over the last couple of days in terms of reports. We'll keep monitoring that and turn on the notifications on the channel to get notified when I drop a pre-recorded episode just like this one, or I go live with other Mets content creators on the respective live streams, whether it's the Mets Hot Stove Live or the Interstate Mets Report on Fridays. You know where to find us and when to find us when we're going live on the channel. Mets signed 3 of the top 50 international free agents on the market as of yesterday, January 15th. You see names like number 6 overall catcher Giovanni Rodriguez, number 31 overall shortstop Yency Rivas, and number 41 overall outfielder Edward Lantigua. You do not see number 26 overall shortstop Raymel Ortiz. Ortiz and his camp have not come to an official agreement with the New York Mets. That is not to say that it can't happen here in the next couple of days, because it can, but nothing is official as of January 16th when I am making this podcast. Let's talk about Giovanni Rodriguez, first and foremost, signing for over a $2 million signing bonus with the New York Mets, and his abilities. Scouts are raving about his talent level on both sides of the ball. Has a great pop time, a great ability to frame pitches behind the plate. Was watching a couple of videos of him defensively, and I liked what I saw. In terms of the bat, has some sneaky power. Obviously, he is very young still, 16 years old, going on 17, I believe. So he has a lot of time to spend in the Mets farm system and sort of fill out to get the maximized potential and return on his power, on the offensive side of the game. But he is a true gap-to-gap hitter, which you like to see out of any Mets catching prospect. And the catching prospect situation for the New York Mets gets a little tricky here, right? Francisco Alvarez is obviously here to stay. Came onto the scene last season in 2023. Obviously ended the season poorly. Hit under 210 on the season, but he had great stretches and really did come on defensively a lot better than what all Mets fans were expecting and what we were told when he was coming up. Also hit 20 plus home runs as well, which certainly plays in any position group for the New York Mets. So Francisco Alvarez is here to stay. What happens with Kevin Parada? A very highly regarded prospect, had a little bit of a down 2023 with the New York Mets in the organization. Still is a premier talent. A lot of teams, if the Mets decide to make a trade this offseason or in the 2025 offseason, a lot of interest will be coming, from Kevin Parada in terms of other teams looking to get him in a potential return to any major league ready talent the Mets end up requiring, right? We talk about starting rotation needs to pair with a premier talent alongside Kodai Senga in the rotation, maybe a bullpen piece. Now, I'm not in favor of trading Kevin Parada and a prospect of his caliber for a bullpen piece, but I think definitely another bat that's MLB ready. Maybe you can slot into the DH category if you're not going to sign a free agent, or a premier starting pitcher is certainly playable for Kevin Parada. Now, it's very hard to project these players on your screen here in the IFA market because they are so young. And I'm not saying the Mets front office has these guys in mind when they decide whether to or whether not to trade a guy like Kevin Parada, who is a little bit more polished and a little bit further along in terms of his prospect sort of career in the minors before he hits the major leagues. All I'm saying is that signing a premier talent like Giovanni Rodriguez, in terms of being that premier talent in the international free agent market, sort of reinforces the, I guess, closure or the solidification of making a conscious decision in order to let Kevin Parada go, knowing that you have a guy like Giovanni Rodriguez who's entering the organization and you're set for a couple of years, maybe even longer term, 5 to 6 years, and Francisco Alvarez already being your major league catcher for the foreseeable future. So that is the update on the IFA class. Not seen in the top 50. Everyone is buzzing about the brother of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., son of the OG Vladimir Guerrero, and that is Vladdy Miguel Guerrero, 16-year-old left-handed power bat. Obviously, he's bigger framed. I believe he is a corner outfielder, if I'm not mistaken. Has the raw tools, the raw power to be a great player in the major leagues. But like I said, it's very hard to predict where these younger prospects are going to end up, maybe even a year or 2 years from now, because the difference between when you're 16 years old as a ball player is a lot different when you get into an organization, you hit the weight room, you get into a baseball program, and you end up being a completely different player at 18 years old a lot of the times than when you were 16 years old. So the jury is still out on that. Obviously, comes from a very rich baseball family in terms of MLB talent in Vladimir Guerrero and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I'm excited for this signing for the New York Mets and Vladdy Miguel Guerrero. Keep an eye out on that in future years as he sort of develops. Now, moving on into sort of the updated baseball prospectus top 101 MLB prospects, we have some great New York Mets representation up and down the board. You see on your screen in blue here, from 23 overall, Jet Williams, to number 8, 88 overall, Christian Scott. And even two names that were, per Mike Mayer's Twitter account, very highly regarded and on the border of making this list, in Marco Vargas and Jeremy Rodriguez, two newer faces that came over in the David Robertson trade and the Tommy Pham trade, respectively. Also further reinforces the fact that the Mets have a whole lot of talent up the middle, with those two guys being shortstops in the Mets organization. So a lot of names here to keep track of. Obviously, Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert probably being 1A, 1B, however you want to draw it up. You all know that Drew Gilbert is my personal favorite prospect, has all the makings of a 5-tool player. Defensive side of the ball, can cover a lot of ground in any outfield position that he can play. He plays all three outfield positions, presumably with his speed more in line to be a future center fielder, but has the capability of being a corner outfielder, and he is a lefty bat as well. Gap to gap hitter, has the ability to hit for power, and also is an average type hitter. In the 35 games that he appeared in Binghamton Double A for the New York Mets when he came over in that Justin Verlander trade, he hit 325, excuse me, as far as the average goes. Moving on here, Jet Williams. When you have a guy in question like Brett Beatty and what his future is going to be with the New York Mets, and if he's going to be that true franchise guy for the New York Mets, you have to have someone coming up right behind him and sort of pushing him to make him better. And I know it's a little bit unfair to Brett Beatty, doesn't even have a full season sample size under his belt before such scrutiny is coming onto his name in terms of trying to prove himself. But that is just the nature of the business, especially when you have talents like Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna that have the capability of also playing third base at the major league level coming up right behind you. Ryan Clifford, the other name that came over in the Justin Verlander deal, was 19 years old last season, struggled a little bit when he came over from the Houston Astros organization, but Over the course of his 2023 season, he appeared in A ball, high A ball, and double A, I believe, and he hit 24 home runs, lefty power bat. First baseman slash corner outfielder, very versatile. He comes in at number 76, and right behind him is speedster Luis Angel Acuna, obviously the brother of Ronald Acuna Jr. We all know that baseball family history as well. It's great to have a guy like this here because he does play middle infield, has the capability of playing third base, and even has the capability of playing an outfield position if need be, if the Mets need to find him somewhere other than up the middle to play. Jet Williams, same sort of thing, can play center field. It's very tricky when you talk about natural infielders going to play the outfield. It's a very big adjustment. I will say that. So, but just the sheer capability of their versatility in terms of being able to play both in the infield and outfield is going to serve the New York Mets very well. Luis Angel Acuna stealing 50 plus bags last season in the totality of his tenure in the minor leagues is something that plays really well for the New York Mets, who have been sort of prioritizing or starting to prioritize a lot more speed on the base paths with the new Major League Baseball rules that sort of caters to speed on the offensive side of the ball and on the base paths. So Christian Scott, probably the best thought of as the best pitching prospect in the Mets farm system right now. A lot of people talking about Mike Vassell, who might be a little bit more ready, going to get a shot in spring training. Christian Scott is a name that has been rising through the ranks, had a 2.5, give or take, ERA last season with the New York Mets. In the first half of the season, he was injured and he changed up some stuff with his delivery. I was reading an article about that. And he gave a quote in an article talking about how Omar Narvaez, yes, the same Omar Narvaez that has been in trade talks as of recent this offseason for the New York Mets, really helped them out when Narvaez and Scott worked together. When Narvaez went down to the minor leagues, presumably last season. So some great stuff. The future is bright with this Mets organization. We know the haul that they got back at the MLB trade deadline. And when Baseball Prospectus updates their rankings midway through the season and even going into next offseason, we have the potential, depending on what happens here, if any of these guys make their major league debuts in 2024, to have about 6 or 7 different names within the MLB top 101 pipeline, according to Baseball Prospectus. So, like I said, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the True Mets Talk podcast. I wanted to give you all an update as of what's been happening within the Mets organization over the last couple of days. I know we haven't had many rumors surrounding the New York Mets over the last couple of days, so I want to get this prospect video out as it pertains to the international free agent prospects as well as the already standing prospects within the Mets organization here on your screen down below in blue. Let's keep an eye out on how the Mets progress for the first half because, like I said, and shout out Talking Mets with Rob, we were talking about this on the Mets Hot Stove Live last night on January 15th. If you haven't checked out that live stream, I'm going to link it in the description down below. Make sure you go check that out first and foremost. We are kind of in agreement on with the way this offseason has played out, the Mets are going to wait and see and have this wait and see approach in the first half of the season. They have short-term deals that they gave out in Sean Manaea. They have short-term deals in Harrison Bader, Jorge Lopez, all of these guys, Luis Severino, that are tradable at the trade deadline in 2024 if things don't plan out the way the Mets sort of plan them out in terms of being that fringe wild card team. If the Mets are not even close to contention at the MLB trade deadline, I think we see a sort of deadline season like we saw last MLB trade deadline and getting prospect hauls back for these MLB talents on tradable contracts, and you get to see these guys here shine thereafter and make their MLB debut. So, like I said, it's going to be an interesting season, regardless of how it shakes out, whether the Mets are going to be sort of overachieving the collective Mets fan base expectations and making a run at the wild card, the back end of the wild card spots, or if they completely falter and we see some of these guys on the list here at the bottom make their MLB debuts, with Luis Angel Acuna and Drew Gilbert. Two names are going to be starting off in AAA in 2024. So like I said, exciting times ahead. Regardless of what the New York Mets do in the win-loss column, we'll monitor these young talents coming out of the Mets farm system. The future is absolutely bright. I understand that a lot of people don't have the patience in order to see these names come to fruition, but we see the likes of Francisco Alvarez coming up and making immediate impact. I firmly do believe the next names on that list are going to be Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert, Luis Angel Acuna, and Christian Scott. I think Ryan Clifford there in the middle is a little bit further away. But nonetheless, we'll see how it all pans out. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the True Mets Talk podcast. It is January 16th. It's your boy CP giving you all the state of the New York Mets in terms of the Mets farm system, and some news coming out there. Make sure you all are hitting that thumbs up button. I definitely appreciate the support. Subscribe to the channel for more Mets content and comment your thoughts and opinions, as well as follow me on X and Instagram at CPNYSPORTS for more Mets talk and more Mets podcast updates. It's your boy CP. Let's go Mets. Until next time, peace. Thank you for watching the latest episode of the CP New York Sports Pod. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you hit that thumbs up, comment your thoughts and opinions, and use the lower right-hand button of this video to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.